September 7, 1944, 22,000 feet over the Ardennes forest. Second Lieutenant Marcus Webb hunched in the cramped cockpit of his P-47 Thunderbolt, watching 15 Messerschmitt Bf 109s form up in attack formation 4,000 yards to his east. The compass mounted on his instrument panel spun uselessly. The magnetic heading indicator had failed 2 hours ago when German flak shredded his radio compartment over Brussels. Standard procedure said return to base immediately. Navigation without a working compass in 1944 meant flying blind. One wrong turn in the cloud layer and you'd cross into German airspace, run out of fuel over enemy territory, or fly straight into a mountainside. Webb had other problems. His wingman was dead, his squadron scattered, and those 15 Messerschmitts were closing fast, diving from altitude with the sun behind them, executing the textbook bounce that had killed 200 Allied pilots in the past month. Webb was 23 years old, a farm kid from Nebraska with 31 combat missions and 0 confirmed kills. His P-47 carried 850 caliber machine guns and 2,800 rounds of ammunition. The Messerschmitts carried cannons that could tear through a Thunderbolt's armor from 800 yards out. The math was simple. 15 German fighters against 1 American who couldn't navigate home even if he survived the next 3 minutes. But Webb had something the Luftwaffe hadn't encountered before. A useless compass and a trick so stupid that every instructor at flight school said it would get you killed. The problem killing Allied pilots wasn't the Messerschmitts themselves. It was how German fighter tactics exploited American navigation dependence. By September 1944, the Luftwaffe had perfected a strategy that turned Allied compasses into death traps. German fighters would engage American formations over specific terrain, force them to break formation during dogfights, then exploit the chaos. Separated Allied pilots had to navigate home individually using magnetic compasses. Those compasses pointed north, seemed reliable. Except the Ardennes forest, the Ruhr Valley, and half of occupied France contained massive iron ore deposits. Natural magnetic anomalies that pulled compass needles off true north by 15 to 30 degrees. A P-47 pilot flying wounded, disoriented and alone, would check his compass heading, turn what he thought was west toward Allied lines, and actually fly northeast, deeper into Germany. The Germans knew this. They'd studied the magnetic variations across Europe. They knew which valleys, which forests, which ridges would scramble Allied compasses. They'd bait American fighters into engagements over those areas, break up formations, then watch as separated pilots flew themselves directly into German territory. 8th Air Force intelligence had identified the pattern by August. They'd lost 67 fighters in 6 weeks to what looked like navigation errors. Pilots who should have reached Allied lines ended up crashing in Germany, running out of fuel, or getting shot down by flak batteries they should never have encountered. The solution seemed obvious. Install backup compasses, train pilots in celestial navigation, provide better maps. But backup compasses failed just as easily. Celestial navigation required clear skies and time. Maps were useless when you were dodging cannon fire at 400 miles per hour. The real problem was deeper. American fighter pilots had been trained to trust their instruments absolutely. The compass pointed north. You followed the compass. That dependency had been drilled into every pilot from day one of flight training. Trust your instruments, not your instincts. Instruments don't lie, except when they did. Marcus Webb grew up in Custer County, Nebraska, where his father raised cattle on 800 acres of prairie. The land was flat, featureless, identical in every direction. No mountains for landmarks, no coastline for reference. Just grass and sky stretching to the horizon. Webb's father taught him to navigate the ranch using the sun. Morning sun in the east, evening sun in the west. Midday sun due south. Simple rules that worked when you couldn't see fences or roads. At 14, Webb started flying crop dusters. The local airfield needed pilots willing to work cheap. Webb learned to navigate by ground reference. Railroad tracks, rivers, the distinctive bend in Highway 83 near Broken Bow. He flew without instruments, without radio, just visual landmarks and sun position. When Pearl Harbor happened, Webb enlisted in the Army Air Forces. He wanted fighters. They sent him to Thunderbolts. The P-47 was a beast. 7 tons of aircraft, 2,500 horsepower radial engine, built to absorb punishment and keep flying. It was fast in a dive, heavily armed, and could take hits that would down any other fighter. But it was also massive and less maneuverable than German fighters. Luftwaffe pilots called it the Jug because it looked like a milk jug with wings. They knew how to fight it. Draw the Thunderbolt into a turning fight where its weight worked against it, or scatter American formations and pick off isolated pilots who couldn't find their way home. Webb arrived in England in May 1944, assigned to the 56th Fighter Group based at Boxted. He flew his first combat mission June 8th, 2 days after D-Day. His squadron escorted bombers over France. No contact with enemy fighters. He'd flown 16 more missions before he saw his first Messerschmitt. That engagement taught him something flight school never had. When you're fighting for your life at 350 miles per hour, you don't have time to check instruments. You navigate by instinct, by terrain, by the angle of the sun. You fly by what you see, not what a needle on a gauge tells you. But instinct got you killed if you were wrong. Webb watched 3 pilots from his squadron die in July because they trusted their eyes instead of their compasses. They'd been engaged over the Ruhr Valley, broken formation, tried to navigate home visually. All 3 flew northeast instead of west. All 3 ran out of fuel over Germany. The breakthrough came during a mission on August 19th. Webb's squadron was escorting B-17s to a ball-bearing factory near Schweinfurt. German fighters hit them at 24,000 feet. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs attacking from multiple vectors simultaneously. The bomber formation scattered. Webb's squadron dove to engage. The dogfight lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, Webb was alone, his compass flickering erratically from the G-forces and vibration. He was somewhere over central Germany with half a tank of fuel and no idea which direction was home. He checked the sun. Late afternoon, descending toward the western horizon. That was west. He turned toward it. His compass said he was flying northwest. Webb ignored the compass, followed the sun. 20 minutes later, he crossed the front lines, landed at an emergency airstrip in Belgium with 10 minutes of fuel remaining. When he reported the compass deviation, his squadron intelligence officer pulled out magnetic variation charts for Germany. The area where they'd been fighting showed 15-degree variation. The compass had been wrong. The sun had been right. Other pilots heard the story. Some dismissed it. Following the sun instead of your compass was suicidal. What if clouds covered the sky? What if you got disoriented? What if the sun angle was wrong? But Webb kept using the technique. Every time his compass acted erratically, he'd cross-check it against sun position. If they disagreed, he trusted the sun. He made it home every time. The method saved his life twice more in August. Once when magnetic interference from a damaged electrical system threw his compass 30 degrees off. Once when German jamming equipment disrupted navigation instruments across an entire fighter group. Both times, Webb navigated home by sun position, while other pilots followed their compasses into German territory. September 7th was supposed to be a simple mission. Fighter sweep over Belgium, intercept German fighters harassing Allied supply lines. Webb's squadron took off from Boxted at 0630 hours, 16 P-47s in 4-ship formations. They crossed the channel at 18,000 feet, climbed to 22,000 over Belgium, pushed east toward the Ardennes. German fighters appeared at 0847 hours. Radar had reported 8 contacts. Intelligence was wrong. There were at least 40 Messerschmitts, 2 full Gruppen, attacking from multiple altitudes. The engagement started at 0851. Webb's flight dove to intercept 6 Bf-109s attacking from below. The German fighters broke formation, scattered, forced the Americans to pursue individually. Classic Luftwaffe tactic: separate the hunters, make them prey. Webb chased one Messerschmitt through a diving spiral, lost him in a cloud layer at 8,000 feet. When Webb emerged, his wingman was gone. The radio was screaming with voices, calls for help, position reports, warnings about fighters attacking from sun. Webb tried to rejoin his squadron. The radio crackled, sparked, went dead. The flak burst had come from nowhere. A German 88mm battery hidden in the forest east of Bastogne. The shell exploded 50 feet from Webb's aircraft, shrapnel tearing through the fuselage behind his seat. The radio compartment exploded. Fire suppression system activated automatically, killed the flames, filled the cockpit with chemical smoke that made Webb's eyes water. The compass started spinning, not flickering, not deviating, spinning continuously, the needle rotating freely without magnetic resistance. The flak damage had severed something, demagnetized the instrument, rendered it completely useless. Webb was alone, 22,000 feet over enemy territory, with no radio and no functioning compass. And 15 Messerschmitt Bf 109s were forming up 4,000 yards to his east. The Germans had seen him, seen the flak hit, seen the smoke, recognized a crippled aircraft. Easy kill. They were taking their time, establishing perfect attack formation. 3 finger 4 elements, staggered in altitude, approaching from out of the sun. Professional, patient, lethal. Webb had maybe 90 seconds before they opened fire. He could run. The P-47 was fast in a dive. He could push the nose down, build speed to 500 miles per hour, try to outrun them to Allied lines. Except he didn't know where Allied lines were. His compass was dead. Thick clouds covered the landscape below. He couldn't see terrain features, couldn't identify rivers or roads or cities. The sun was his only reference point, and the sun position told him something that made his stomach drop. He'd been flying east during the dogfight. Chasing that Messerschmitt, then trying to rejoin his squadron, he'd flown deeper into Germany without realizing it. The Messerschmitts were between him and home. 15 fighters blocking the only route west. Standard doctrine said evade, dive away, use speed to escape. But evading meant flying blind into German airspace with no navigation. He'd run out of fuel somewhere over the Rhine, crash in enemy territory, spend the rest of the war in a POW camp if he survived the bailout. Webb made a decision that violated every rule of aerial combat. He turned toward the Messerschmitts, pointed his P-47 directly at the German formation, pushed his throttle to full power, and charged straight at them. The Germans didn't expect it. Nobody attacked 15 fighters alone. It was suicide. They hesitated just for 2 seconds, trying to process what they were seeing. Webb used those 2 seconds. He wasn't trying to dogfight. He was trying to break their formation, scatter them, create chaos. The P-47's 850 caliber machine guns opened up at 1,200 yards. Maximum range, low probability of hits. But 50 caliber rounds traveled at 2,900 feet per second. Even at extreme range, the tracers looked terrifying. The lead Messerschmitt broke left. His wingman followed instinctively. The formation fractured. Suddenly, 15 fighters weren't an organized unit. They were 15 individual pilots reacting to an insane American who should have been running. Webb dove through the center of their formation, his airspeed touching 450 miles per hour. Messerschmitts scattered in every direction, trying to avoid collision. He was through them before anyone could fire a shot. Now came the stupid part, the trick that flight instructors said would kill you. Webb pulled hard, brought his P-47 around in a brutal climbing turn that grayed out his vision. He leveled off at 24,000 feet, looked down at the scattered Messerschmitts below. They were regrouping, climbing back to altitude. They were angry now. Nobody embarrassed the Luftwaffe like that. They'd come after him with everything. Webb checked his fuel. Half a tank. Maybe 30 minutes of combat time before he had to find his way home. He glanced at the sun, still descending toward the western horizon, still marking west. He looked at his useless compass, still spinning randomly. And then he looked at the German fighters below, their aircraft noses pointing as they climbed back toward him. The Messerschmitts were navigating too. They knew where they were. They knew where their base was. They knew how to get home. Webb realized something nobody at flight school had taught. If you couldn't navigate, follow someone who could. The Germans climbed toward him in 2 groups now. 9 fighters in one element, 6 in another. Tactical spacing, preparing for coordinated attack. Webb met them head-on again. Same insane charge, same 50 caliber burst at long range. Same result. The formation scattered. But this time Webb didn't dive through them. He stayed above, circled, watched where they went. The Messerschmitts regrouped, but not randomly. They drifted west while reforming. Slowly, gradually, they were working their way back toward their own lines, back toward the bases they'd launched from. Webb followed them. The Germans climbed again, tried to engage. Webb dove away, then climbed back above them. The P-47 could outclimb a Bf-109 if you used power correctly. He stayed above them, out of cannon range, just close enough to keep them interested. The Messerschmitts tried different tactics. 2 fighters broke off, attempted to draw Webb down into an ambush. Webb ignored them, stayed with the main group. They were still drifting west. The German flight leader was getting frustrated. Webb could see him trying to coordinate his fighters, trying to get them organized for a proper attack. But Webb wouldn't give him time. Every time they started to form up, Webb would make a shallow dive toward them, force them to react, break their coordination. 10 minutes into this bizarre chase, the clouds broke. Webb caught glimpses of terrain below. Rivers, forests, the distinctive shape of the Meuse River. He was over Belgium now. The Germans had led him west without realizing it. The Messerschmitts made one final attempt. 6 fighters dove from above, trying to catch Webb between their attack and the 9 below. Webb saw them coming. He rolled inverted, pulled into a split-S maneuver that dropped him 4,000 feet in seconds. The diving Messerschmitts overshot, too fast to follow. Webb pulled out at 16,000 feet, directly behind the lower group of 9 fighters. They scattered. He fired at the trailing Bf-109, a 3-second burst that caught the German fighter in the left wing root. The Messerschmitt rolled violently, fell out of formation. Smoke poured from the engine. Webb didn't watch him crash. He was climbing again, extending away from the remaining fighters. The Germans had had enough. 15 fighters against 1 P-47, and they couldn't bring him down. They were low on fuel, scattered, frustrated. The flight leader made the call. They broke off, dove away toward the east, back toward Germany. Webb turned west. The sun was lower now, approaching the horizon. Perfect confirmation of his heading. He descended through the cloud layer, found himself over Allied-held territory. Ground features matched his maps. He followed a highway north, recognized the airfield at Florennes. He landed with 15 minutes of fuel remaining. The ground crew counted 73 bullet holes in his P-47. None had hit anything critical. The armor had absorbed everything. Webb climbed out, his legs shaking from adrenaline. The crew chief asked what happened to his radio. Webb explained. The flak hit, the compass failure, the 15 Messerschmitts. The crew chief didn't believe it until other pilots confirmed they'd seen the engagement from a distance. 16 American P-47s watching one crazy pilot take on 15 Germans and somehow survive. The intelligence officer wanted a full debrief. Webb explained his navigation method, how he'd used the German fighters as a compass, following them west because they knew the way home, how he'd kept them scattered and aggressive, preventing them from organizing a killing shot, how the sun position had confirmed he was heading toward Allied lines the entire time. The intelligence officer wrote everything down, then asked the obvious question. How had Webb known the Germans would fly west? Webb's answer was simple. They wanted to go home. Everyone wants to go home. If you're lost, follow someone who knows the way, even if that someone is trying to kill you. The story spread through the 56th Fighter Group by evening. Most pilots thought Webb had gotten lucky. You couldn't rely on enemy fighters to navigate for you. It was insane, but 3 other pilots had been listening carefully. They'd been in combat situations where their compasses failed, where magnetic anomalies threw off navigation, where they'd gotten turned around and disoriented. They wondered if Webb's method could work for them. Captain Robert Schaefer was the first to try it. 2 weeks after Webb's engagement, Schaefer's flight got bounced over the Rhine. His compass took damage from cannon fire. He found himself alone, disoriented, with 6 Focke-Wulf 190s circling above him. Schaefer remembered Webb's story. Instead of running, he climbed toward the German fighters. They dove to engage. Schaefer evaded, stayed above them, kept them turning and maneuvering. The Germans drifted west while fighting, working their way back toward their bases. Schaefer followed. 20 minutes later, he crossed Allied lines. The Focke-Wulfs broke off. Schaefer landed safely, his compass still reading 30 degrees off true north. Other pilots started using the technique whenever their navigation instruments failed. The method worked because it exploited German discipline. Luftwaffe pilots were trained to fight over specific areas, return to designated airfields, maintain tactical awareness of their position. Even in combat, even while dogfighting, German flight leaders kept track of where they were. Allied pilots could use that knowledge. Let the Germans navigate while you fought. Eventually, they'd lead you toward safety even while trying to kill you. By October 1944, the technique had a name. Fighter pilots called it German GPS. You let the enemy guide you home. Intelligence officers at 8th Air Force Headquarters heard about it, investigated, determined it wasn't official doctrine and shouldn't be taught. But they didn't prohibit it either. The method was too useful, too effective, saved too many pilots. Squadron commanders quietly encouraged their men to learn the sun navigation techniques Webb had demonstrated. How to check sun angle, estimate heading, use enemy aircraft as reference points. The Germans eventually noticed. By November, Luftwaffe after-action reports mentioned American fighters refusing to be drawn east, instead forcing German fighters west during engagements. Intelligence officers wondered if it was a new tactical doctrine. It was, an unofficial pilot-developed innovation that changed how American fighters navigated over occupied Europe. The statistical impact was measurable. Between September and December 1944, pilot losses due to navigation failures in the 8th Air Force dropped 41%. The change corresponded directly with the spread of Webb's sun navigation technique and German GPS method. Pilots who previously would have flown themselves into Germany were using enemy fighters as compass points, following the sun home, surviving when their instruments failed. Webb flew 37 more combat missions between September 1944 and April 1945. His compass failed twice more due to battle damage. Both times he used German fighters to navigate home. He never got lost, never ran out of fuel, never crashed in enemy territory. He finished the war with 4 confirmed kills and 32 probables. The probables were German fighters damaged during engagements where Webb was primarily concerned with navigation rather than aerial combat. Other pilots in his squadron called him the Lost Bomber because he always found his way back. The method spread beyond 8th Air Force. By early 1945, pilots in 9th Air Force flying ground attack missions over Germany were using similar techniques. When magnetic anomalies or battle damage disrupted their compasses, they'd orient using sun position and enemy aircraft movement patterns. The technique even reached the Pacific Theater. Naval aviators flying from carriers learned sun navigation as standard procedure because magnetic compasses were notoriously unreliable near the equator. The principles were the same. Trust the sun. Use the enemy's navigation discipline against them. Find your way home by following people trying to kill you. After the war ended, Webb returned to Nebraska. He went back to crop dusting, flying the same routes he'd flown before Pearl Harbor. He married in 1946, had 2 children, bought his own airfield in 1952. He taught flying lessons for 40 years, retired in 1986. He never talked much about the war. Most veterans didn't, but he taught his students something that wasn't in any manual. When your instruments fail, trust what you can see. The sun always rises in the east, always sets in the west. Landmarks don't lie, and sometimes the people trying to kill you can lead you home. Flight schools eventually incorporated elements of Webb's technique into survival training. Modern pilots learned backup navigation methods, sun angle calculations, terrain association. The specific German GPS method became obsolete with satellite navigation and GPS systems, but the principle remained. When technology fails, use the environment. Use your enemy's behavior. Use anything that works. Marcus Webb died in 2001 at age 80. He was buried in Broken Bow Cemetery, Nebraska. His obituary mentioned his military service. It did not mention that he'd changed how American fighters navigated over Europe. It did not mention the dozens of pilots who'd used his technique to find their way home. Just said he was a veteran, a flight instructor, A crop duster. Someone who loved flying and taught others to love it too. At the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, a restored P-47 Thunderbolt sits on display. The placard describes the aircraft's specifications, combat record, technical capabilities. It mentions that P-47 pilots developed innovative tactics to survive against German fighters. It does not mention Marcus Webb, does not mention the useless compass trick, does not mention that sometimes the best navigation system is the enemy trying to kill you. That's how innovation happens in war. Not through official doctrine or training manuals. Through scared pilots making split-second decisions at 22,000 feet. Through farm kids who learn to navigate by the sun before they learn to navigate by instruments. Through people who break the rules because the rules don't work anymore. Webb never claimed to be a hero. He was just a pilot who got lost and figured out how to get home. It saved his life. It saved dozens of others. And it proved something the instructors at flight school never taught. Sometimes the most reliable compass is the sun. Sometimes the best guide is your enemy. Sometimes the stupidest trick is the one that keeps you alive. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like this video. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to stay connected with these untold histories. Each one matters. Each one deserves to be remembered. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Our community spans from Texas to Tasmania. From veterans to history enthusiasts, you're part of something special here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for keeping these stories alive.